Challenges were stacking up for President Biden, from polling to donor money drying up. I talked with CBS Chicago political analyst Lori Lightfoot late this afternoon. The former Chicago mayor said the path forward for Biden disappeared. Mayor, what a day. Are you surprised?
You know, I'm not really surprised at this point. It's been a slow but steady drip and evaporation of support. And I think when the news was leaked that Speaker Emeritus Pelosi had weighed in, and then some suggestion that indirectly former President Obama had weighed in, I think the writing was on the wall. But it obviously a highly personal, highly emotional decision that only one person can make. But I do think that there's a level of enthusiasm out there that I'm seeing for the candidacy of Vice President Harris. But the process going forward has yet to be revealed. There's no time for a primary. I've seen commentators talk about that. That's just not realistic. There's got to be something that feels like not an anointment, but a process of choice by now, at this point, party leadership, delegates who have been elected from their various geographies. But we need to move on about the business as Democrats of defeating Donald Trump.
The Clintons have endorsed Kamala Harris. The Obamas have not. Nancy Pelosi has not. It seems there are some who are sort of keeping their powder dry, if you will, to see what happens. Do you think someone steps up to challenge the vice president?
Look, I think there's a lot of people who would like to step up and challenge her. They've made no secret of that. But here's the practical reality, which I've been saying for the last couple of weeks. So Biden steps down, then what? The fact of the matter is the money that's been raised by Biden-Harris can only be used by Kamala Harris. The very complicated question of how do you get on the ballot in all these states across the country to be viable? I think that's an open question. And I think it's one that she definitely will have an advantage in. Although, again, I'm not an expert in election law and certainly not getting on ballots across the state, but that's going to be a real challenge for anybody who says, oh, well, call on me and skip over the vice president. I think the other practical matter, Joe, is, because the polls have shown it consistently over the last many cycles, the most consistent voting bloc for the Democratic Party are Black women. So explain to us how it is that you skip over the sitting Black female vice president and go to someone else. I think that's going to be a really tough call. And the truth of the matter is, this last couple of weeks has been a total distraction on the part of the Democratic Party. We are just weeks away from the convention, and we've got to get it together and be unified heading into that convention, not waiting. I don't think this is going to be something that will play itself out on the convention floor, but as a practical matter, if the Democrats cannot demonstrate to the American voters that they have a leader who is strong, who is proven, and ready to take on the challenges of the world, Donald Trump wins.
What about her vice presidential pick? That seems to be key for many. Obviously, we hear that Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania, the governor there, would obviously help with Pennsylvania, possibly Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. There's talk of Andy Beshear in Kentucky. There's also talk of J.B. Pritzker, possibly. Who do you think ends up sort of in position A and B in that discussion?
Well, look, I think it's too early to know. And frankly, none of those people that you've listed have been tested at a national level. And that's the great risk. People don't win or lose elections on the basis of who their vice presidential pick is. But I think in this moment, particularly because of the reasons we talked about, a Black female candidate, which would be breaking the ultimate glass ceilings, I think you've got to pick somebody who's going to be a huge value add, looking at governors in swing states like Pennsylvania, like Michigan. I've heard a lot of talk about Andy Beshear, who is a two-term governor in a traditionally red state. I think there's a lot of factors there. I think it's also going to be determinative, and let's not underestimate the power of the donors out there, who the donors are going to rally behind. But most of these names are unknown on the national stage. It's really going to be about if it's Kamala Harris, who's our nominee, and I hope it is, it's really going to be about her vision, her articulation, and picking someone that really fills in the gaps for her and helps her speak to that audience of independents and moderates who have been reluctant to embrace the Democratic ticket so far.
They got Biden to step aside as many wanted. Do you think it would be dangerous to now head up another hill for another battle with Kamala Harris?
Well, I don't see how that battle really plays itself out in a timely fashion. We're ticking down to the start of the convention here soon. I think that what's going to happen. Obviously, lots of calls are going to be made across the country to leaders of state parties. There needs to be a process that people understand, a process that's transparent, but we need to get on with it. The surest way to lose an election is to show that you're not unified.
The battleground states were slipping away from Joe Biden. It's why some of the many Democrats who asked him to step aside were in that position. Do you think Kamala Harris can make up what was lost in those battleground states? And I guess just in a sentence, do you think she can beat Donald Trump?
Oh, I have no doubt whatsoever she can beat Donald Trump if she gets the support of the party, if the dollars and the donors are there, and she's able to engage with those state parties, those state leaders, particularly in the swing states, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Georgia. You've got to get those folks geared up and excited. And then if I think she can do that, there's clearly a pathway to win. Donald Trump, every single day, gives a whole file of opposition research to the other side of why he is unfit to be president. So it's just a question of Democrats unifying behind a strong choice and getting out there and voting like our lives depend on it, because they do.